and welcome to the Creative Influencer Show. My name is Melvyn, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the three fatal failures facing first time entrepreneurs, part 3. Thank you for all your downloads, and this is the Creative Influencer Show, episode 004, the final installment of the 3-part series of fatal failures facing first-time entrepreneurs. And in today's episode, we're focusing on the failures in the business context. Now, you see that there's never a boring day in the business if you run your own show. And that's because every day will bring about new problems and challenges that you have never encountered or anticipated. Particularly for someone who is transiting from freelancer to entrepreneur. Sometimes these challenges could prove to be overwhelming or even insurmountable. And in today's show, we will be examining the 3 fatal failures at the business level and how you can avoid them. And so with that, without further ado, we'll move on to the first fatal failure. Now, the first fatal failure is assuming people will pay for your solution. A lot of time where entrepreneurs start is they start with a brilliant idea. Now, nothing wrong with that, except that when you start up with a brilliant idea, you want to ask if the idea is a solution to a vexing problem that people are willing to pay money for. The first question you really want to ask is, are people willing to pay for the solution? And so that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is how do you monetize your idea? So even if you have a great idea, a patent pending idea, how are you going to monetize that? Are you going to make? What is your business model, for example? Yeah, and the most important thing to take note is at the end of the day, what are people willing to pay for? They're not willing to pay for your solution, but what they're willing to pay for is the results that they are going to get. Okay, so that's what people are willing to pay for. And so what is the solution to that if you face with that problem of whether people are willing to pay? So the first question you want to ask is, what problem will this solution solve? So let's say if you have a solution, for example, in my case, the solution I have is using design thinking. So one of the questions you want to ask is, what problem will design thinking solve? Now, if immediately you kind of say that, well, it solves every problem, then it actually solves no problem at all. Okay, so you want to be very clear what specific problems does it solve. The next question is, who will have this problem? All right, so for example, back to my design thinking example, what specific problem would this solve? So one of the problem that design thinking can solve is to resolve the fact that students don't like to learn in a particular way. And who would have this problem? Well, it will be schools, the teachers, for example. And are they willing to pay for it? Well, so you have to price your offering in such a way that people are really ready to pay for it. Okay, so that's mistake number 1. Starting right away with this solution and assuming that people will pay. Now, mistake number 2, it's something that I've also been very familiar with, and that's expecting success right away. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong in expecting success, except that when you're expecting a get-rich-quick, that will only bring about disappointment. And so you have read in many, many instances whereby entrepreneurs go into a business venture with a promise of getting rich quick. And quite often they not only don't get rich, but they get burned in the process. And so everything takes longer than you think, whether it's marketing, whether it's validating demand, whether it's market research, making a sale, building a list. Everything takes longer than you think. All right, so what you want to do is to have set your expectations right. And so the solution that I'm recommending is 3-part. First is to do a proper goal setting exercise. So what that means is that you take your long-term goal, your vision, if you will, for the business. And you break it down into 1 year goal, a 6 month goal, a 3 month goal. Yeah, so what you want to say is that in the next 3 months or in the next quarter, this is what I want to achieve. In the next 6 months, this is what I want to achieve. In the next 9 months, as well as the next 1 year, this is what I want to achieve. Once you've broken it down into the 3, 6, and 9 and 1 year goals, the next thing you want to do is to break it down further into what you want to do on the monthly basis or the weekly task. Okay, so the monthly task or the weekly task that you must carry out in order to reach your goal. So, for example, one of my goal is to be able to reach out to at least 1,000 people at the end of this quarter, for example, for my show. And so one of the things that I must do on a weekly basis is that I've got to record these shows, and I need to convert them into from YouTube. I need to convert them into audio for podcasting, and then turn that into an article from the transcript as well as the outline that I've created. And also along the way, I've came up with what are some of the additional way of repurposing this content so that I can reach as many different groups of people who prefer different way of consuming the content as possible. All right, so do a proper goal setting exercise, and then after that, break it down into weekly or monthly tasks. Now, I use another approach which is called the AIM approach. Well, AIM actually stands for attention, impact, and motion. So the thing that I want to do is first I want to say, okay, attention. What is it that I want to focus on? So what I want to focus on is I want to get 1,000. I want to be able to reach 1,000 people at the end of this quarter. And so what's the impact of that? The impact of that, having reached 1,000 people and to be able to keep them subscribed, the impact of that is that I'm able to build trust with this group of people. And so motion and the end part, the motion, what is it that I must do? So break it down into weekly and monthly tasks. These are the series of things I must do. So AIM approach, I've also included the link to the show in the show notes, so you can check out the article that I've written a while back. And the third thing that you want to do in this part here is also to get an industry-specific mentor. So as I mentioned, things always take longer than they should, or than you expect. So validating demand, market research, building your website, doing on-page optimization, for example, writing about page, all these things are going to take longer than you think. And especially if this is the first time you're doing and you're doing it on your own, at some point in time, you're going to be wondering, am I on the right track? So what is really critical here is that if you can afford it, get an industry-specific mentor, someone who is able to tell you what you should or should not be doing. And if you want more details, go back and look at part 2 of this show, and you will be able to get a better idea of what we're talking about. Okay, so that's point number 2. And point number 3 of failures in the business context, really, it's not being adaptable. Now, I really like this graphic here. It really shows that, sometimes we as entrepreneurs, we have to be pushed to change, okay? So the 3 things, one is we have to learn to be adaptable, because in this today's ever-changing market, you really have to be out there, watching what's going on, and to be able to adapt to change in demand, change in preferences. And they used to say that, well, the product life cycle used to be like a year, for example. That has dramatically reduced to 6 months, and sometimes some people would even argue that the life cycle these days is just about 4 months. Well, regardless, the point is you can either learn to be adaptable, and if you're depending on just one product or service, then you're going to be out for disappointment. So, for example, in the past, I used to help schools to obtain certification in the National Human Resource Standard. And by understanding the market well enough, I was able to anticipate the shift that schools are no longer going to be requiring this certification services anymore. And so that's when I make the shift from going from that to strategic planning as well as design thinking later on. And by being able to understand the market well enough, I was able to be ahead of the curve and to be anticipated all this change and to be in time to kind of introduce these new services to my customers. Had I not made those changes, I would be caught flat-foot. Yeah, so that's depending on just one product or service, you're gonna be sorely disappointed. And lastly, of course, you want to be able to listen to your customers. Um, Whatever they're telling you, want to pay attention to that and to change accordingly. And so the solution to this is really about listening to the market. And when we say listening to the market, we don't just mean passive listening. Sometimes listening to the market would involve something like in the empathy stage, in design thinking, where you really actively solicit or seek out insights, worldviews, thoughts from your customers, asking them what are their greatest pains, what are the greatest struggles, what are the greatest challenges, what is it that they need help with, and what is it that they need help with right now. So listening to the market is something that is so important. I cannot stress even more. And so if you say, well, right now I don't have a market, I don't have a ready pool of customers that I can go to, what can I do? Well, turn to social media, because in social media, it's where you get the most uncensored, unfiltered way of people asking questions. Through those channels, you will be able to kind of sieve out, better understand what are some of the concerns, what are some of the challenges that people have. One source that I go to very much is Quora, because in Quora, you really get people asking questions about a particular subject matter that you have expertise in, and through reading those questions, you will then be better able to understand what are some of the concerns that people have. So listen to the market. Once you have listened to the market, do your analysis and come up with certain prototype. Now here, really done is better than perfect. So come up with a prototype, test it with that market, and gather feedback. And along the way, you want to iterate, you want to make changes, you want to make improvements to your prototype. And one of the best things that I've learned in my last decade in working with as an entrepreneur, as a freelancer entrepreneur, is that you want to surprise your existing customers. What I mean by that is, once you have come up with a prototype, you want to go back to your existing pool of customers and say, hey, I've come up with this thing that is new. And because this is new, I am not charging you. I'm willing to do this for you at a low cost or no cost. And what I want to do is, what I'll ask for in return is for you to give me feedback and to give me your inputs about what's good and what's not good, what needs to be changed. And by doing that, I further add value to the relationship that I am already in. And what that happens is that when I'm ready to do a public launch of the service, I would already have testimonials of who and which schools have kind of embraced and adopted some of these solutions that I'm pushing it now to the public. So with that, I've kind of achieved a few objectives here. One is that I have been able to prototype and test my new offering and get feedback in terms of what works, what doesn't work. At the same time, I'm able to nurture and value add to my existing customers. And when I do a public launch, I have a list of testimonials. I have a better version of my prototype, which I'm then ready to launch at the public level. So these three things are some of the things that you really want to consider doing or some of the things you want to consider doing with respect to adapting to the market itself. And with that, we've come to the end of our show here this week. And really, thank you so much for all your downloads and your support. And if you haven't already joined the Creative Influencers community, strongly encourage you to join the community, because that's where on a weekly basis I'll be sending out content, and along the way I will also be sharing with you some of the resources And the main goal is to be able to equip you with the mindset, the skill set, and the tool set of how to resolve challenges in your business as an entrepreneur. This is Melvyn Tan signing off from the Creative Influencers Show. Thank you and bye-bye.